Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is Wednesday, which means we missed our recording on Tuesday, and now we're catching up, and you know what that means. It's episode number 36 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the galaxy. I'm Lam, also known as Mr. Nice Guy, and I got my comrade in gaming commentary with me, the miggity Mac, also known as Maction. Mac, we didn't record the week of the 4th of July. We missed this Tuesday due to me having some things going on, but now we are back. We have a lot to catch up on. What's new, man?
You know, Mr. Nice Guy, I feel bad saying it like this, but nothing and everything at the same time. Mrs. the Mac and I, we've had a fantastic past couple of weeks. But it's one of those things where it's like, it's been great, but nothing interesting has been going on. It feels like big things have happened, but really it's just been a fantastic past couple of weeks. Everything's coming up Millhouse, basically.
Coming up Millhouse. That's
yeah,
right.
but apart from that, I mean, like, nothing big, nothing that I could actually point and be like, hey guys, this awesome thing happened, I got a promotion at my job, or anything like that. No, it's just been fantastic. That's really all I can say about it.
Dude, that's cool, man. You know what? Sometimes the best times are times when it's quiet. You know what I mean? We're getting old, Mac. We're getting old. We don't like that type of young, 19 to 21-year-old excitement that we used to be into. Now we just like, taking a nap during the day, maybe reading a book. Sitting on the porch, drinking some lemonade, you don't always gotta have something exciting going on, playing some video games, working on the backlog. That's a good day, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a good day. It feels great, and I mean, exactly, Mr. Nice Guy.
Well, I had some cool stuff happen that I want to share, man. So, my twin girls, I have 2 boys and 2 girls. The twins just turned 2. Just this month, and so my mom flew in, and we had some other people come over, and my dad didn't fly in this time. He had some work stuff going on, but we had a really fun party for the twins, and I have never met anyone in this universe. You know how we do the nerdiest gaming podcast in the universe? My wife does the best party planning in the universe. Like, I have never met a person who plans parties that are as awesome as the ones that she plans. So she actually planned a tea party for our girls. And I mean, that's a very girly thing, but the cool thing about it was there was so much food, man. There was more food than I have ever seen at any buffet in America. There were ham and cheese wrapped rolls. There were like cucumber and cream cheese sandwiches. There was lemonade. There were all kinds of cookies and crackers and snacks. I don't know if you know what petite fours are, Mac.
I always called them pedophores, but yeah, they're like cupcakes.
Yeah, they're like little square-shaped cupcakes. They're called petite fours. They're fantastic. I think that for my next birthday party, I am going to have a tea party. Just because this food was, I'm not really gonna do that.
No, you should.
This food was so amazing, and then a ton of people came over to the house. We had a good time. The girls were running around. We had some people hanging out downstairs. It was just great. It was fun. I've never, and for my youngest son's first birthday party, it was his golden birthday, and my wife threw him a Willy Wonka party. Yeah. And so, I mean, like, there was a point where everything was Willy Wonka themed. So we'd watch a portion of the movie, and then we'd go into another room with all the kids, and we'd do, like, part of the movie. So, like, she hung up fruit roll-ups on the wall, so you had to, like, lick the wall. Like, it was amazing. Like, it was the coolest. My wife throws amazing parties is what I'm trying to say. So that was one of the highlights of my week. Also, the 4th of July, made some ribs. I have to talk about this rib failure. Do we have time to elaborate on this?
There is always time for ribs.
We've talked before about how I'm a grill master. On the 4th of July, I was not a grill master, Mac. I almost messed up 2 racks of ribs. So I put these ribs on the grill, did them for 2 hours, for 6 hours, low and slow. There's this method called the 3-2-1 rib method. I did the 3-2-1 rib method, and after 6 hours, I cut into those ribs, and they were raw. So that's not a 4th of July success, Mac. I don't know what's going on with my grill. but I may need to get it inspected. So, bottom line, we had to throw those ribs in the oven. They didn't turn out quite as desired because, typically you want them on the grill. And I had some smoke going too, so they'd be smoky. Almost ruined everybody's dinner, but saved it by throwing them in the oven and doing some brats in the meantime. So, case in point, sometimes you got to have a meat thermometer in there. Don't just trust that the heat is strong enough. Check that internal temperature. That's what I learned this 4th of July. And that's been some of the highlights of my 2 weeks. Mac, I say we do what we do best. And we hop right into the gaming news, my friend. What do you think?
I think we have to, Mr. Nice Guy.
For those of you who are here live with us or listening after the fact, once again, this is Two Nerds in a Pod, episode number 36. We're 36% of the way to 100 episodes, and we're going to hop right into this gaming news. First story of the week. Mac, you know about net neutrality. You're nodding. I know you do. And today was kind of a big day in the world of net neutrality. Let's see. Let's read the Kotaku story because there were a lot of stories about this across the web. This is obviously on Kotaku.com. It says, today thousands of websites are protesting the government's recent threats against net neutrality, a harbinger of the internet apocalypse. Internet behemoths like Google, Amazon, which owns Twitch, and Reddit, as well as smaller sites like iFixit and Plays.tv are participating in today's day of action against internet service providers' push for, among other things, the right to slow down access to or block competing websites. For gamers, rolling back net neutrality means gaming could get a lot more expensive. And it kind of goes on to explain what it means. It says, right now the internet is a utility, not a privilege. In 2015, Barack Obama introduced a mandate that forced internet service providers like AT&T, Spectrum, and Verizon to give equal internet access to all consumers, preventing providers from charging more for fast lanes or throttling certain websites. For example, Verizon couldn't stifle access to Vox Media because it's a Comcast venture. President Trump's Federal Communications Commission Chair Ajit Pai wants to repeal Obama's net neutrality rules. He has said that he favors free and open internet, but he's concerned that the more the internet is regulated, the less incentive service providers will have to compete and improve. Bottom line, guys, to put it in layman's terms, Mac, how would you describe net neutrality to the uninitiated? Like, if you had to explain it very simply, how would you explain it to somebody? Because that was not a real good explanation. If you don't want to field that, let me know, and I can kind of break it down.
No, I'll field it. So, the problem is anytime you try and simplify something, especially when it involves a lot of different government agencies, you're going to lose some of the nuance. And the Kotaku article did an okay job, but it lost a lot of the nuance in there. But the big point, the big article of contention is that people had, internet service providers had already done selective throttling of data with competing services. I think the most obvious one was Comcast Netflix. And John Oliver did a fantastic job of explaining what was going on there, and I won't try to field that. But the idea was being that because so much of what we do, how we interact. I mean, you want to search for a job, you're going to go to the internet first these days. If you want to pay your bills, you're going to go through the internet first. If you want to do so many things, you're going to do internet first. That's your biggest portal.
You want to see some videos of cute kittens? You know where you're going. It's to the internet.
You want some kittens, you want some pornography, you're going to go to the internet.
And I absolutely don't condone that. Just to be clear.
Yes, Mr. Nice Guy does not condone it, nor do I. But the point being, if you want something, you're going to go to the internet to get your hands on it. To the point that it seems ridiculous to not treat this as a good and service that needs to be sort of guaranteed, kind of like the school system, libraries, roads, things like that. So that's kind of the conflict back and forth, with one side saying it is so vital to everything that we do that we need to treat this like a guaranteed utility. And the other side saying, or at least the new FCC chairman saying, no one will invest in broadband if it is that way, even though the even though the telecom companies themselves have said this does not stop us from investing in broadband. So I mean,
so if I was to break it down in like a sentence for people who may not understand, it basically means you could be charged more based on what you are doing on the internet, right? So, you might be charged a certain amount just for surfing the web, looking for a job, like you said. Or if you're watching Netflix or streaming on Twitch or even just playing games online, you could potentially be charged more for that just because you're using more bandwidth. Net neutrality prevents that. If net neutrality goes away, they could charge more for those things, right?
Yeah, that is one of the things that could potentially happen, yeah.
Yeah, so there was the protest today, I guess it was an online protest.
Yeah,
and
Day of Internet Action.
Day of Internet Action. I'm all about that. I think anyone who is a gamer is about that. And I want to be clear, we're not a political podcast. It's not an Obama-Trump thing. It's a my opinion thing, and I assume Mac's opinion thing too. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I don't think that anyone who uses the internet feels that they should be charged more for doing certain things, for watching Netflix, for playing video games, for whatever. And who knows? We'll see what happens with it. I hope that net neutrality stays in place, but we'll move on and see what happens. Mac, you have any more comments on that, or should I keep it moving?
Nope, keep on rolling.
All right, guys, and I haven't pulled up the chat yet. For anyone who is here, welcome to episode number 36 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the galaxy. Next news story that we've got for today comes from Game Rant. It says, and this is going to interest you, Mac, it says an extremely rare NES game sold via eBay for over $55,000 in Australia, which translates to roughly $42,000 US. Stadium Events is an NES game that initially launched in North America in 1987. Just the used cartridge alone can sell for several thousands of dollars, but in this case, Stadium Events was still in its shrink wrap and in excellent condition. Another factory sealed copy of Stadium Events was sold in 2010 for just over $41,000. So if anything, $42,000 7 years later seems like a good deal. It's an odd story that's led to a not quite popular game like Stadium Events becoming one of the rarest and most expensive games in history. Bandai initially published Stadium Events in North America, but it has been reported that only 200 ever reached store shelves. Nintendo had issued an immediate recall of Stadium Events in order to rebrand the game as World Class Track Meet and released it as a first-party game. It was part of their push to market the PowerPad peripheral, and Stadium Events gave the accessory a fitness application. So, Mac, $55,000 for a game. If I'm ever in a position to do that, I'm absolutely not doing that. Unless I'm trying to start a video game museum. Now, that said, let's talk rare games for a minute, because obviously there's no discussion that needs to be had about whether or not we think a game is worth that amount of money. But as far as rare games that maybe you don't have that you'd love to have a physical copy of, what games are we looking at? What games would you like to have a copy of? If you could pick them up for a reasonable price.
Yeah, honestly, I have very little interest in a lot of the super rare games. So if we want to talk just strictly NES, original Nintendo, I've got my EverDrive, which allows me to play any and all that I want. However, there are a couple that the EverDrive does not accurately play or does not play well. Stuff like Castlevania 3. There are certain chips that the Nintendo games had that the EverDrive doesn't handle well. So I would just get my hands on those personally. But with regard to probably the only of the rare games that I would ever feel happy to have a copy of would probably be the game Little Samson. It is more or less a game very similar in style to Mega Man, but it was released near the very end of the Nintendo life cycle, so very few copies were made, and it's rare because there weren't that many copies put into circulation. And it's in its own right, it is a legitimately enjoyable game to play.
Nice. So Little Samson, you said?
Yep, Little Samson.
Now, I believe you talked about that in gaming history once, didn't you?
I may have. Mr. Nice Guy, it's been 36 episodes. I could have talked about any number of games.
Do you remember everything we've talked about ever?
No, but I do remember a lot.
I'm just kidding. Cool, man. Well, I don't know. For me, it'd probably be just because I really never played Chrono Trigger. I'd love to have a physical copy of it. I think that'd be
Oh
a fun
yeah.
game to have. Also, there was this game that I had back in the day called Alfred Chicken for the Game Boy. And you know, when you're a kid, you do dumb stuff. Me and my brother traded that game in, along with a couple other games, like this game called Page Master, which was based on a popular movie at the time. We traded both of those Game Boy games in and got a copy of GoldenEye 64, I remember. And if I could have both of those cartridges back, I absolutely would, because they were both fun games. And I've never really seen either of those games just sitting around in used game stores. So that's it for me. Next news story comes from GameSpot.com, and this one is really interesting to me. It says, Sony may have only released the PlayStation 4 Pro at the end of last year, but more hardware could come as soon as 2019, according to one analyst. Wedbush Securities' Michael Pachter has told Gaming Bolt that he expects the PlayStation 5 to launch in 2019, and that it will be a half step similar to how, in Pachter's view, the PS4 Pro was a half step over the base PS4. The PS4 Pro, quote, the PS4 Pro is better from a technical perspective than the PS4. So I think that's a half step towards the PS5, he says. I think the PS5 will be another half step. He added, my expectation that it's not coming out in 2018, that it will be 2019 or 2020, but probably 2019. Sony is probably timing it better because they are going to bring out a 4K capable device when the 4K TV market reaches 50% in the USA and 35% in the rest of the world. He goes on to say, I think Sony will probably get the next console. Actually, I think Sony has probably got the next console cycle nailed down already. I think they know what they're going to do. Max, so I believe PS4 launched in 2014, and I believe I picked it up. Yeah, I picked it up like January 2015. And now we're already talking about rumors. Once again, this is just a rumor. And in fact, it's not really even a rumor. It's just an analyst's prediction that we'll get a new console in 2019. So here's the question for you. And I know you don't own a PS4, but you're probably fairly familiar with it, and you're familiar somewhat with the consoles and what they can do. What steps other than graphics, if any, can consoles make at this point? Because in my mind, everything is already as good as it can be. You know, the online is solid. The controllers are good. You know, I don't know if there's anything that I want or need in a console at this point. I feel like maybe consoles have reached their peak.
Frankly, Mr. Nice Guy, I've felt that way for quite some time. It's why the newest video game console I have is a Wii. And I only picked up a Nintendo Wii so that I could play Mega Man 9 and 10, because at that time, those were the only, those were the only places that you could pick them up. And I wouldn't have gotten a Nintendo Wii if I hadn't seen it at a bargain price. So yeah, I feel like consoles don't really have much place else to go for me. You know, what I'm looking for, consoles are either not doing as good of a job as a PC for me, or they are doing about the same, but I've already got a PC. So yeah, I would say the only thing I think that consoles could do to improve would be to have better exclusives. That would be kind of the only thing I can think of.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I'd agree with you. I feel like consoles have reached the point where they're competing with themselves, and I'm not even talking about like the PlayStation competing with the Xbox, with the Switch. I'm talking about with the most recent version of the PlayStation is now competing with the previous iteration of the PlayStation, right? And that's why I think he referred to the PS4 Pro as a half step. Like it's a step up from the PS4, but a step down from where the PS5 will be. Additionally, I feel like the only real enhancements that consoles can make, other than competing with themselves, are graphics, right? And the only reason they're making graphical improvements is because new TVs are coming out that have more pixels and things like that. So then the next console says, hey, now we got to make our console compatible with this new TV technology, and they're really not coming up with unique ideas to make the console itself better. Now, just to kind of explain what I mean when I say that consoles are competing with themselves, I mean, the PlayStation 4 had a certain interface, right? It had a good-looking interface, and it worked at a certain speed. There was a little bit of lag. Download times, kind of took some time and things like that. Not just based on your internet connection, but based on the power of the console. And then the PS4 Pro comes out, and it's 4K compatible, and it's a step up as far as the speed of the way the operating system works. So other than improving the graphics on the PS5 and making them completely 4K compatible, the only thing they can really do is improve the interface and make it run more quickly. And to me, that's really not worth more money. Now, will people pay more money for it? Absolutely, because they'll make software for it that will only be compatible on the PlayStation 5. But other than that, I don't see them making any improvements that make it a must-buy day one. And that's kind of my stance on it. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if 2019 is really the year. Another thing that I wonder is, they announced The Last of Us Part 2 in 2016. It has not come out yet. People predict that it's about 2 years away. It makes me wonder, is this going to be on the PS4, or are they going to hold off and put it on the PS5? We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I know they did that with the original Last of Us, but that was new at the time. It was a new IP. So I'm interested to see how Sony handles that dilemma. Moving on to our next news story, Mac. You a Resident Evil fan, right?
Yes, I do actually enjoy Resident Evil and have some fun stories about it, but yes, that's the short answer.
Okay, cool. Well, I know you don't own the PS4, but a PS4 and Xbox One version of Resident Evil Revelations is coming out this fall. It says Capcom has announced a release date for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One version. The updated port will arrive in Japan on August 31st, with a US and European release following sometime in the fall. Along with enhanced 1080p visuals, the upcoming port features all the DLC from the original game, making it the definitive version. Capcom showcased the improved visuals back in May with a pair of gameplay trailers which followed the game's dual protagonists, Jill Valentine and Chris Redfield, as they solve puzzles and fend off the game's zombie-like ooze monsters. You can see those videos here on the website. It originally debuted on the 3DS back in 2012 and was subsequently ported to the PS3, Xbox 360, Wii U, and PC in 2013. Did you ever play this one on the PC?
It's the one where they're on the boat, right?
I honestly don't know. This is Resident Evil Revelations. I think I played a little bit of it on 3DS, but I didn't get that deep into it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the one on the boat. No, actually, that one I skipped. So I spent a long time not being a fan of Resident Evil, and then I kind of got into it at Resident Evil 5 because I was able to play cooperatively, and then played some Resident Evil 4. I still haven't done 6, but, I can do Resident Evil if it's cooperative. And Resident Evil Revelations is cooperative, so I think I just need to find a sparring partner, actually.
Yeah, PC. They got it on the PC. So, What's your favorite Resident Evil of all time? If you had to pick one. I don't know if you're that much into it or not.
I would say 5, just because it's the one that it's the one that made me interested in the franchise. I had played Resident Evil 2, but after 2, I was sort of like, yeah, I'm done with this.
There you go. Okay, fair enough. Well, maybe they'll bring back 2 in HD graphics for the PC. Next news story, we have 2 more, and then we'll be done. The End is Night. The new 2D platformer from the creators of Super Meat Boy and Closure is out now on PC with a release date on Nintendo Switch and possibly other consoles coming in the future. You can download the game on Steam for $15. The game is a sprawling platformer where flopping appears to be your main form of attack against, quote, decaying mutant animal-like creatures. You play... Whoops, I accidentally opened the YouTube video. Let's see... Let's pick up where I left off. You play Ash, but it's unclear just what Ash is. The game's developers say he is one of a few things that survived the end of the world. Check out some of the gameplay video below. In the end, Ash must complete an epic final quest. Like its developers' previous games, The End is Nigh has a dose of dark humor. You collect video game cartridges and tumors along your adventure, with the intent to simply make a friend out of the pieces of people Ash finds along his journey. The game has more than 600 levels and over 12 plus chapters. There are multiple endings, many extras, achievements, and, quote, stress, according to the developer. So, Mac, you nodded when I started reading this. Have you heard about this game already?
I have.
Have you played it? Is it your
I have
thing?
not. It is not my thing because there's not enough. Because frankly, I'm not a big fan of games like You Want to Be the Guy, where it's sort of a one-hit death type of
Yeah,
situation.
dude, we're on the same page, and I hate these. Just like I like difficulty in my games, but I don't like the crushing like trial and error. Like jump here, jump there, time it. Oh no, wait, something happened that you weren't expecting. Here's a twitch move that you need to avoid. Like it's not my thing. So yeah, I don't know if I'll pick this game up. Now that said, Super Meat Boy, I'm not gonna sit here and say it was not a fantastic game, but there's a point where the difficulty just reached a ridiculous level, and I just put it down and I never picked it back up. And that was on the Xbox 360. I finally just said, you know what? If I have to kind of get lucky to beat some of these levels, I'm not gonna put this much time into it. Did you play Super Meat Boy?
I did, and I think it was like the hospital level or something. There were all these jagged syringes all over the place. That's where I started to go like, yep, I am not going to bang my head against this level for this long. Yeah, I'm done. And that's when I said sayonara, and I haven't touched it since either.
I feel like it very quickly became a game that the only people who completed it were those who wanted the achievement that said they had completed it for bragging rights. Like, to me, and I could be wrong, but to me, it's just not fun to play a game like that, where you're dying and you're dying and you're dying and you're dying and you're dying, and then finally, it's kind of like, have you seen Super Mario Maker videos?
Yes.
Some of the just intense ones where it's like the only reason that you're even beating this level is so you can put the fact that you beat it on YouTube. Like, you get nothing from beating it. You don't get, I mean, it has to be showcased in some way that you beat the game. That's why people play those really crushingly hard games. So anyway, let's keep moving on, and we have one more news story, and this one involves Dota 2. It set a new record, and here's the article. This is on Game Informer. It says the 7th annual International Dota 2 Championship has already surpassed last year's record-breaking esports prize pot of $20,770,460. Teams are being continuously added to the Battle Pass compendium, meaning the pot will continue to grow for the next few weeks. The prize pool tends to surge whenever one of the immortal treasures is released, and with one more treasure to go, we can expect another spike in the prize pool in the next few weeks. The tournament hosted by Valve will take place once again in Seattle's Key Arena. Seattle! That's where I grew up. And runs from August 7th through 12th. Check out more about this year's International and get up to date on this website. So, Mac, esports, I feel like we're constantly pushing the fact that they're legitimate. I feel like this settles it, Colin Cowherd and anyone else who disagree. A $20 million prize pool for a game that is not even the most popular esports title. I think that says something, don't you?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I think it says it all. It doesn't say something, Mr. Nice Guy. It says it all.
It says it all. I mean, I think we don't even need to elaborate. And that's our news stories for the week. Mac, I'll turn it over to you, man.
All right. Well, welcome once again, everybody, to Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the known universe. And now we're going to do a little section called that we like to call Gaming History. So we'll focus on maybe some of the games that have meant something to us as gamers personally, or maybe have made big strides in gaming. This particular time of year is always a little interesting because the cycle of releases for games was always a little thin around July. But don't worry, we've got some fantastic ones to talk about. The first one, though, is a new twist on an old classic. I love Mega Man. Mr. Nice Guy was talking about Mario Maker just a second ago, but there is something that's coming out in 2 days called Mega Maker.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned this. I forgot.
Yes. No worries, no worries. In 2 days, 8 hours, 29 minutes, and 30 seconds from now, it will be released. Mega-maker.com if you want to look into it. It's basically a Mega Man fan game that is built in such a way for you to interact with it much the same way you would with Mario Maker.
Yes.
I plan on having some fun with it, so should you, but a great spin on a classic series. That being said, unless you had anything you wanted to say about it, Mr. Nice Guy.
No, I'm excited for this. It's only for PC though, isn't it?
Correct.
Which is awesome, but I'd love to see it for consoles. I believe that the guy who's the team that's making the game cannot charge ever, because if they did, Capcom would potentially be able to do a takedown, right?
Well, as we know from Nintendo, you don't need to be charging money for the company to come after you. However, Capcom has shown a little bit more restraint with regard to its fan games. I have actually interacted personally with the makers of several fan games, such as Mega Man Revenge of the Fallen, a few other things. It's one of those things that is that Capcom seems to be like, well, if you're not profiting from it, we'll be fine. Mega Man Unlimited, Rockman Minus Infinity, these sorts of games that Capcom is just fine with existing. Nintendo could take a lesson from their book.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, and I believe it contains artwork and stuff from Mega Man 1 through 6, right? So it's not like Mega Man X stuff. I'm like 99% sure.
Yeah, it's all classic style. So it even includes stuff from Mega Man's 9 and 10 as well,
nice.
Which were done in the classic style.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's cool stuff. But on to some actual gaming history. We in years past, this past week, we saw the release of a fantastic game that would spawn a whole new franchise of people smoking cigars and, giving money to strippers. I am, of course, talking about Duke Nukem. Yes, folks, Duke Nukem, released in 1991. It was, at that point in time, a side-scrolling shoot 'em up. Not shoot 'em up, a side-scrolling gunning platform thing. Very much in the same style as Commander Keen. It was made by a lot of the same team when they were working at Apogee Software. Duke Nukem, released in 3 chapters. First one came out in 1991 in this week past. Now, the next thing I want to talk about for gaming history has a visual component. So I'll just mention it for those people who are listening to this after the fact. I hold in my hand an Xbox game, Jade Empire. Very good one. It is noteworthy for gaming history because it's old. I haven't played it, and I picked it up at a pawn shop recently. This is the other one, the one that actually has something to do with it, which is Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones. Now, again, this also has a visual component, which you will see on my phone. I took a photo, and I'm holding it up to the screen.
Nice.
It happens to be my save games from Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones. I didn't actually beat this game, but it was this past week back in 2006. It was July 8th in 2006, where on my Xbox I made the last save. And I don't remember where this game went to, but I picked it up last week. I popped it in to my Xbox, which I still have and still use, my original Xbox, and bam, on the 11-year anniversary of my last save on this game, I found it at a pawn shop and tossed it into my Xbox. So I think that is worth mentioning for gaming history. 11 years on the anniversary. Didn't plan it. Didn't even know it was going to happen. It was just a heck of a lot of fun. So anyway, that is, as I said, gaming history is a little bit sparse because most people tend to release their games around the holidays and not so much in the middle of summer. But we've got some good ones coming up for next week's podcast. But that's what I have for gaming history. Now, I know that we actually have that Mrs. the Mac had actually given me a question that she wanted us to answer, to hear from us. So, Mr. Nice Guy, I don't know if we've got anybody else lined up for the viewer question, but so in the off chance that we don't, I've got one. Just saying.
So here's where we're at, because I was just reviewing the ones that got tweeted at me, and we have one, but I feel like it's a topic that we have beaten to death. It involves the SNES Classic and inventory levels. and what we think will happen. And so I feel like we've already talked about that so much over the past few episodes. So yeah, let's go ahead and go with Mrs. the Mac's question, and you can do that this week if you want.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. So Mrs. the Mac had the following to ask. She said, if there is one old game, old game from your childhood or from whatever, that you think is really good and you would want to see remade, which one would it be?
Just one, huh? It's like
yeah.
It's like Lay's potato chips, except you can only pick just one. Geez. That's really tough. I actually think I know what it would be. Do you want to do this first, or do you want me to go first?
No, please.
So here's the one that comes to mind first, and it's actually one that has already been remade, but I feel like it was remade very poorly, and that's GoldenEye 64. They did remake it for the Nintendo Wii, and I shouldn't say very poorly, but I feel like Nintendo's poor online combined with the lack of ability to communicate just completely killed what made that game so fun. And what made it fun was the communication and the trash talk and things like that. Now, we've kind of given up the fact or resolved the fact that that couch co-op is dying, and that's what GoldenEye 64 was. It was couch co-op. But I feel like it still could have been a really, really good game if there was online that was solid and if there was online chat that was solid. So I would love to see that game remade again. I know that it's been done in Steam in the form of GoldenEye Source. I've never played that, but I know it's not as popular as it could be. So GoldenEye 64 for a mainstream console. Rare, I believe, owns the rights. So, I mean, they could really technically do it for like the Xbox One or something and have the solid online and kind of bring back the glory days. Even add a mode with bad graphics on purpose, just so we can kind of remember how far it's come.
So we can see those polygons.
So we can see those pixels and polygons, man, and that odd job with the paintballs and all that stuff. So that's my pick.
For my part, I've thought about this question. I've had some time to think it over. And there was this game that I played a lot, and it's not Mega Man. It's actually Quest for Glory. So you want to be a hero, and this was a game series where you started out, you got a character, you played him through the first one, and it was a point and click RPG. And at the end of the first game, you could import the character into the next one. And then you did that at the end of game 2, game 3, all the way to game 5. So you essentially had a character that had been with you through 5 full games, and you really grew attached to. I think if there's one game I'd love to see remade and brought up to today's, I would love to see it be the Quest for Glory games, specifically Quest for Glory 1. I would just love a game like that where I actually felt like I progressed. It had been a bit on my mind because in Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones, at the end of the previous game, which was Prince of Persia: Warrior Within, you could end the game in one of 2 ways, and that was supposed to impact your game for the next one, for the third one in the trilogy.
Okay.
But it didn't really do that. It kind of went the same way, basically, no matter what. You just had a different opening intro, which, in my opinion, is not really changing gameplay. Whereas in this one, if you had built your character up as like a thief or a magic user or a fighter, that stuck with you. That opened up areas of the thing. If you were a fighter, you would have the option of becoming a paladin later on if you were inducted into the order by saving people and stuff like that. If you were a magic user, you had the option of being inducted into this guild of wizards. If you were a thief, you could go on to like own your own thieves guild. There were a lot of things that were sort of tied together in the game, and they did rely on, did you have this choice? Did you go this route? In a much more meaningful way than something like, oh, spoiler alert, you decided to kill this person. Well, I guess that means that they won't be there in the intro scene to the next game. That's literally where the difference
like
was.
they won't be in the artwork.
Yep, they weren't in the intro video. That was basically it, and I was very disappointed because when I find out that something like that's going to happen, I tend to like save so that I can see it multiple ways, so that I can experience all the different ways. So yeah. Anyway, I guess the thing I'm most attached to is the idea of long-term consequences to your actions. And I'd love to see more of that, and I'd especially love to see a Quest for Glory remake. So there we go. Good question, Mrs. the Mac.
And any game that's remade at this point, I want to see more retro games remade, and I want retro games that have multiplayer. I'm going to give that as like a sweeping secondary answer to the question, because I feel like we already have plenty of HD remasters or even just HD remakes of games that were already in HD on the PS3 or the Xbox 360 coming back. I want to see some of the games where the servers were shut down be brought back. You know what I mean? Put some life back into these games, especially since so many developers will not allow fans to recreate the games and make their own servers. That's what I want to see more of. Let us relive the glory days of our favorite games that still would have a dedicated audience. So, very good question from Mrs. the Mac, and I know I usually do that segment, but Mac, we're kind of back to you again because you usually handle the next one.
Indeed, and the next question is the next segment is our kick or kickstart segment. So this involves a little bit of interactivity for those who have come around to the live recording of the event. So I'll just go ahead and put a link so that you can take a look, and we will talk about Fight Night. So what is Fight Night? At its core, it is a first-person brawling game set in a sort of dungeon crawl style. The artwork is definitely a little bit low res. It's trying to draw on these sorts of dungeon crawlers, like not quite Eye of the Beholder, but right around that level. You move in set increments, forward, backward, left, right, turning, and so on. And then you wind up getting into fights. And you fight the enemies in front of you. You punch, you kick, you do combos, you have cooldown and recharge on certain skills. You can throw people into other people. The artwork itself is pretty enjoyable. And the idea is kind of solid. It reminds me of another old Xbox game called Breakdown, which was actually a first-person shooter brawler that I still have and have played a couple of times. Sadly, it did not age well, but not all games can age well. But yeah, so it's something that plays for me upon a sort of sleeping memory, and it's something that I quite enjoy. I think the artwork does a pretty good job of doing justice to the subject matter, and the controls are pretty good. The foes are all right, but I've only seen a small amount of the game. Now, the Kickstarter specifically, they've got a few people in there. And where is the breakdown? Sorry, I thought I had this just a minute ago.
You're okay. Are you wanting to know as far as how much has been put in money-wise?
Oh, yeah, no. I've got how much is being... They have blown past their goal. As a matter of fact, I had this... When we were still going to do our thing on July 4th that we didn't wind up doing, but when we were still going to do that, I was ready to, trot this out on July 4th. So since then, it has been fully funded. And they're going to be pushing ahead. And I could have sworn that there was a price breakdown, but I'm probably just confusing that with somebody else. But either way, it's being made in Canada. If you're interested in the game, it's about $15 US, 20 Canadian dollars in order to get a digital copy of the game. Estimated delivery in 2018. There is no option for an alpha access, which is something that we see a lot with Kickstarter games. This one's just you'll get it when it's done. 2018. They do include some mention of this is going to be done on time, barring extreme injury or death, we're not going to be delayed on this one. We're on track, which, now I am going to say though that I must admit I've got this one rule, this one big rule about Kickstarters, and that is I need a playable demo.
I didn't know that was one of your rules.
No, you didn't, Mr. Nice
No,
Guy.
and people who listen to every episode of our podcast probably had no idea either.
No, you probably didn't. So I'm glad that I mentioned it then, because it's important to me. I need to see example that you can do it all, that the music is on point, that the controls, that the visuals, that it all works together. I need to be able to see that you've got it. You can show me pre-rendered stills, but that does nothing, or even GIFs. What really does it is when you show me that you can have it all come together in one spot and that I can get my hands on it, even if it's something small. So they do have a demo. Now, all of this taken together, for me, this game is a kickstart. I say kickstart this one. Now, the time comes for all of us here, based on the presentation, based on what you've seen. You go ahead and vote in the chat. Say kick whether or not you think this should be kicked out, or kick start it if you think this is a project that is worth your time and maybe even your money. So for my part, I say kick start. Mr. Nice Guy, what about you?
Man, here's the thing that I like about it. Here's where they get a few bonus points from me. Under creation, it says, at this point, Fight Night has been under serious development since the beginning of 2017, but its history goes back much farther than that, all the way to some of our childhoods. In fact, and then it shows a sketch from back in the day, and I assume that this was really drawn back in 1997, as the picture says, of one of the guys who's working on the game drew like a sketch of this game and what it would look like, which I think is absolutely awesome. He's basically bringing a childhood dream to life by doing this game. Now, that said, it just doesn't catch me. It just doesn't resonate with me. You know, I'm looking at it. It looks like Doom with updated cell shading graphics, which I think is great. But I just don't see why anyone, or I should say why I would put time into playing a game like this. It just doesn't. It's almost like too old school with not enough new flavor, if that makes sense. So it's not my thing. I'm going to say kick it, man, because I wouldn't put time into playing a game like this.
Okay, well, this is a very divided one so far. We've got a kickstart from Kane. We've got a kickstart from Rolf, a kickstart from me, and then we've got a kick from Mr. Nice Guy and Pazzy. So yeah, kind of divisive on this one, but hey, that just means that we've picked a good one to discuss. It will be interesting to see how it goes. I think I might actually, I think I'm probably going to put the money down on this one, and well, I mean, we'll see it eventually. I do like to report back on how the Kickstarters have gone over time. So I look forward to hopefully reporting back to you guys on this one. But that's it from our kick or kickstart segment.
Awesome. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for the main event. Just kidding. It's not the main event, but it is my favorite segment of the show. A segment we like to call the Dummy of the Week. A segment of the show where we talk about someone who did something stupid, idiotic, or downright dumb, and I make fun of them a little bit. Now, this week we have a traditional Dummy of the Week. It's someone who actually just did something real stupid. This is on, what's the website? Miami Herald. It says, Miami-Dade police detectives had noticed that crime victims were followed from their financial institution in northwest Miami-Dade and were subsequently robbed or had their vehicles burglarized. On Wednesday, they set up surveillance that led to the arrest of 5 men in their 20s. The 5 were charged with a vehicle burglary, grand theft of a firearm, petty theft stemming from stealing video games. Petty theft stemming from stealing
It's all those
games.
petite fours.
It's all those petite fours from my kid's party, man. They got me pronouncing words wrong. Loitering and prowling and possession of marijuana, according to a police report. On the day of their arrests, Shane Ramings, Caleb Brown, Andrew Ramos, Christian Velasquez, Devont Carter, and Devontae Carter were spotted around 10:30 a.m. in the Wells Fargo Bank parking lot on Northwest 186th Street and 67th Avenue. Police were surveilling the lot due to recent vehicle burglaries in bank parking lots in the area. Detectives spotted the 5 men smoking marijuana in and around a silver Nissan Altima before they exited the parking lot, the arrest record says. The detectives followed the men to the Walmart on Northwest, blah, 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 the address, according to the report. Detectives used the store's video surveillance system to witness Brown placing 5 to 6 video games in a book bag as the 4 others gathered around him, according to the arrest reports. I'm going to read that part one more time. Detectives used the store's surveillance system to witness Brown placing 5 to 6 video games in a book bag as 4 others gathered around him, according to arrest reports. After the men left Walmart without attempting to pay for the game, the detectives arrested them. In searching the car, detectives found marijuana bullets. Wait, I read that terribly.
Marijuana bullets, I mean, those are the...
You shoot them at your enemies, apparently.
All they do is they just make you hungry.
Yeah. Without attempting to pay for the game, blah, 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 police found marijuana, bullets, a black mask, and a stolen gun, according to arrest reports. So here's where this is stupid. This might just seem like a regular story, but we always like to emphasize we don't condone crime. We think it's stupid. We think it's bad. But there's a lot of illogical things about these guys' behavior. Why are you going in a group of 5 people into a store to steal something? We talked about this a few weeks ago when there were people who went into GameStop and there were 5 of them in the getaway car. All you're doing is incriminating a high number of people who really had nothing to do with the crime. It makes no sense. Also, this is like the worst strategy of all time. Hey guys, I'm gonna go in the store and I'm gonna steal a bunch of games and put them in my backpack. I need you guys to stand around me. But don't block the cameras completely. Just block employees from seeing me do it. The police, if they're lucky enough to be there because they followed us here from the bank, we're out of luck. But other than that, just stand around me and it looks like we're just talking. This is ridiculous. Here's the other thing that's dumb about this news story. They kept robbing people outside the bank multiple days in a row. And then on the last day, they didn't even rob anybody, but they just met there before they went to go steal stuff. You think after a while, if you're robbing people outside a bank day after day, you know it's going to get reported. So after a while, you think you'd stop going to the exact same place to rob people? And then, like I said, on the day they got caught, they didn't even rob anyone. They just met there and then drove somewhere else to rob people so they could get caught by the police. These are the worst criminals of all time. They're all 20, 21 years old. Now they're going to be tried as adults. I think this is stupid, Mac. That's our dummy of the week.
All right, and I agree with you. So now on to our last little segment happens to be Legalese.
Legalese?
Where we talk a little bit about some of the court cases, some of the lawsuits, some of the things that have impacted the way we interact with, buy, sell, or even, consume our video game content. This particular month is the month of July, and I have been promising for quite some time that I was going to focus our Legalese segments in the month of July on one overall theme.
Yes.
And I am here to deliver on that. We're going to focus on a very individual whose name is Jack Thompson. So, Jack Thompson, for all of the things that I can say about this guy, Jack Thompson, I have to tell you that I must say he is a man of strong convictions. As evidenced by a wonderful letter that he wrote to Bruce Springsteen. You may or may not be familiar with the hip-hop group 2 Live Crew. I had never really heard any of their songs, but I was aware from this event that the 2 Live Crew sampled some of the song "Born in the USA" by Bruce Springsteen, and they made a song called "Banned in the USA." Now, as a result, Jack Thompson, a man of very strong convictions, wrote a letter to Bruce Springsteen and told him that it was his responsibility to protect the song from, quote, from its theft by a bunch of clowns who traffic toxic waste to kids, or else I will tell the nation about your tacit approval of their messages.
Uh-oh.
So let me just say that I think we're off to the right foot, understanding a little bit about this person, Jack Thompson, and the kind of person who he is, that a threat to a singer-songwriter is what he feels is the appropriate course of action for something that he disagrees with. That being said, the reason why you've probably heard about Jack Thompson is that he is embedded in the narrative of video game violence. Video game violence as a topic is in large part a topic thanks to the efforts of Jack Thompson. So maybe it might be a bit much. He might be a bit much. I think that that one of the things that Jack Thompson really feels about the world that we can all agree on is that practice makes perfect. So much so that in his mind, he has called video games murder simulators on multiple occasions. And he feels as though these murder simulators are the problems with violence and shootings and all sorts of things and need to be curtailed in order to prevent problems. He's been involved in about 5+ lawsuits to prevent these murder simulators, aka video games, from coming to market. And so because it's the month of July and I want to give an overview of some of his stuff, I will start with the first and probably most famous case, and we'll talk some more about his career and about video game violence in subsequent months. But this first one I want to talk about is from the 1997 Heath High School shooting case. I believe it was Heath High School in, I want to say, Kentucky, where there was a shooting. And after this school shooting happened, Thompson represented some of the families of the victims, several of the families of the victims, and sued for $33 million in damages, naming the responsible parties, Microsoft, Blizzard, id, Ubisoft, Capcom, Interplay, and Callisto, because the shooter had played and had games from those companies. He had games such as, oh gosh, I had the list here, but I seem to have lost it. Not important, but he had games that Jack Thompson felt were these murder simulators and were directly responsible for the shooting. There were also several other companies that this kid who did the shooting possessed items from. For example, one was a movie, and so the suit also named this movie company. And there were several internet websites that were also listed in this suit on account of them not doing enough to prevent these murder simulators and these murderous ideas from getting hold in this young man's mind.
This is crazy. This is ridiculous.
So the suit, of course, was dismissed because in the court's estimation, it failed to make a legally viable claim, which is the legal way of saying, yeah, that's a bit of a stretch, Jack. That's a bit of a stretch.
Come on, Jack.
But nonetheless, in spite of being told, don't you come back, no more, Jack Thompson would be back on many occasions, and he will be back in our next episode of Legalese, where we tell you some more fantastic and interesting things about Jack Thompson. But in the meantime, do yourself a favor and do not Wikipedia this man. I want to be the one to introduce you and show you the life of Jack Thompson. So that's what we'll do for today, and that will end our Legalese segment. But stick around for future episodes, because we are going to talk about some fantastic things that will bring us delight and laughs.
That's right, Mac. That could not have been delivered more eloquently. I love that hit the road, Jack thing at the end. Guys and girls and boys and kids, that has been episode number 36 of Two Nerds in a Pod. Before we go, we like to do one last segment called What We've Been Watching and What We've Been Playing, where we talk about the media that we have been partaking in and enjoying. It can be comic books too. It can be whatever nerdy stuff you've been into the past couple weeks since we haven't done a podcast in about 2 weeks. Mac, and viewers in the chat, let us know what you've been up to. But Mac, what have you been doing, man? What you been watching? What you been playing?
Well, so after I finished Better Call Saul, I started roping in lots more people. And so been watching Better Call Saul with them. Almost through on my third viewing of Better Call Saul.
It's a good show.
It's great. I have people over. We have popcorn. We watch. It's good stuff. Also, Mrs. the Mac and I watched the entirety of Glow. It's a new Netflix original, and it is based on the women's wrestling, the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, GLOW, and how that got off the ground. Some, of course, artistic liberties were taken, but I did also watch a documentary about the real people from Glow, and it seems like, whereas in the original thing there were like 36 women wrestlers, in this there's only like 12. So they take some liberties and sort of, it's like this person, you can certainly see, this person in the dramatized version is like kind of this person and this person put together, and, and so on, fun stuff like that. But it was really fun. I really enjoyed Glow. We've also been watching some sci-fi. We've been watching through some more Star Trek. As for what I've been playing, I've been getting back to some of these Xbox games on account of this great pawn shop find. So I've got to get myself a Wii Motion Plus so that I can actually play Skyward Sword. But I'm this much closer to having all the Zelda games. I've been thinking for a while. I've wanted to play through all the Zelda games in timeline order, the official timeline. The official Zelda timeline, and it starts with Skyward Sword.
What would you say is your favorite Zelda? Because it sounds like you've made it through many of them now, most of them. In fact.
I've done Ocarina of Time, Oracle of Seasons, 1 and 2, and Link to the Past. So I've only done about 5, and there are a lot more. So I kind of want to get through them all, but so far Link to the Past has just been my favorite. It was really good, start to finish.
This is going to be controversial, but one of my favorite Zeldas is Link's Awakening. And I don't know why, but something about the handheld, there were just really, really cool equipment in that game. And I liked the puzzles, It just was a really good handheld game as a kid, middle school, and so I have a lot of memories of that one.
I will take issue with you on Link's Awakening because every time you got one of those defense acorns or Triforce pieces of power, it always stopped you to tell you that you had picked it up, even if it was for the 1,000th time. It's like, congratulations, you can do more damage now. It's like, I get it. Please stop telling me.
Yeah, that's true. Well, cool, man. Now, I've been watching a lot and playing a little bit. I think I told you, maybe it was last time we finished watching Flash, so now we're trying to get caught up on Arrow and Supergirl, the most recent seasons. And, man, I feel like the DC Universe is killing it. Here's my stance on the whole comic book, TV show, movie thing. Hands down, Marvel makes better movies. There's no debate. And in fact, we're thinking about doing a thing where we go back and watch all the Marvel movies in order, my wife and I. Marvel kills it as far as movies. DC needs to step their game up, although I heard Wonder Woman was sick. I haven't seen it yet.
Wonder Woman was
Justice
sick.
League trailer just came out. There's a lot of good stuff on the horizon. But here's the bottom line. I feel like Marvel kills it in the movies. DC absolutely destroys Marvel in the TV shows.
Have you yet finished Jessica Jones?
No. You're trying to tell me Jessica Jones will change my opinion?
Jessica Jones is amazing.
Okay.
Luke Cage is pretty excellent.
So I heard Luke Cage was good. I heard Iron Fist was terrible. It's embarrassing that I haven't watched all these, but it's just time. You know what I mean?
Oh no, I get it. I
liked Daredevil a lot, and you didn't though.
You've got 4 kids, man. Nobody here thinks that you're not doing the best with your time. But I will say that that Iron Fist, of them all, it probably goes for me, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Daredevil, Iron Fist in best to worst. Iron Fist, and the problem is with Iron Fist, they just didn't have good... Well, you know what? I'm not going to go on about that. We'll go on about this some other time. I'll let you know what I disliked about Iron Fist at another time. But I just think Jessica Jones is really good.
Well, now here's the thing. Now they're doing a team up with Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist. Do you think it's going to be good?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you think the goodness of Jessica Jones and Luke Cage will balance out in what in your mind is the mediocrity of Iron Fist and Daredevil?
Really, when we're talking about it, it's like Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Daredevil, Iron Fist is way down here. Wow, so, I mean, it's these three are going to balance out Iron Fist's whatever it is. I mean, Iron Fist is, but those three are going to hold it, and Iron Fist, might be kind of fun.
See, and here's the thing, though, and we can talk. We're going over time because we're going to talk about this. You have not really gotten into the Flash. Like you gave it a chance, but you didn't really like it. Now, here, Flash is awesome. I really liked Gotham. I really like Arrow. At first, I didn't, and I feel like it has its ups and downs, but I've gotten back into it. And to me, those three shows right there are really killing what Marvel is doing on the TV show front. Flash is just that good to me. Alternatively, I don't like DC's Legends of Tomorrow. I think it's terrible.
Well, don't get me wrong. I actually kind of enjoy Gotham. I love Fish Mooney. She is fan-freaking-tastic.
Yeah, she's a great actress. That's Will Smith's wife. You may know this, Jada Pinkett Smith. Excellent show. And then, Marvel is coming out with The Runaways, which I'm excited for because that's my favorite comic book series of all time. The trailer leaked online. So for any of you guys who have not heard of The Runaways or seen it, go check out the trailer. Really, really great comic. I don't think the trailer does the comic justice, but we'll see what they can do with the TV show. Also, you got the Legions. I started watching Legion. I couldn't get into it. It's supposed to be an X-Men-like show. Now I believe Fox is actually coming out with an X-Men actual show. But anyway, other stuff I've been watching, Madam Secretary, which Mac, I'm like 99% sure that you and Mrs. the Mac would really like it because it's a political drama. It has a lot of issues. Like the most recent episode we watched dealt with Syria and, with our relationship with them. And like the Secretary of State is the main character and her brother is like a volunteer in Syria trying to help the people. So it showed like the political debate of her being the one who had to go after, the quote unquote bad people in Syria while also having to sacrifice innocents in order to get the bad heads of state or what are perceived as the bad heads of state in the show. And her brother saying, hey, wait a minute, I work there, I live there, and you're going after all these people with kids being collateral damage. And so it just kind of showed the political debate there. I think you guys would like that show. Lots of really, really real life issues and moral dilemmas and things like that. And I'm not taking a stance either direction. That's not our podcast, but really good show if you guys like that kind of stuff. As far as what I have been playing, picked up Has Been Heroes for the Nintendo Switch. Very, very average game, but I've been getting into that because it was on sale. Still doing the retro stuff. Lots of Mrs. Pac-Man. Going back through and playing Super Mario Land, Super Mario Land 2, all those old Game Boy games. And then once again, I've never finished Donkey Kong Country 3, so I've actually been going through and playing that on the Retro Pi on the arcade, and it's really, really good. Like, it's a solid game that came out at the wrong time, so I've been playing that, and that's it for me. Mac, we have a lot of stuff in the chat that people have been watching and playing.
We do. I'll just quickly summarize them. So we've got some people who are too busy to watch or play games in some cases.
What?
But nonetheless, we do have some Star Trek Deep Space Nine, some Star Trek Next Generation, solid choices, one and all. The Yakuza series of video games, which I know are very well loved. We've got some Stellaris, A Healer Only Lives Twice, and The Enchanted Dungeon. And of course, some extra love for Wonder Woman as a fantastic movie. I have to admit, Mr. Nice Guy, one of these days I might do a spin-off episode about what Mac thought was wrong with this $1 million movie. But Wonder Woman, fantastic. And so that's what looks like people are playing and watching in the chat.
Nice. Now, guys, we do have. Should I tell them about the live thing we're thinking of doing, or should we hold off on that for now?
You know what? Let's see. Let's tell them. Let's tell them so they can be here for it.
Yeah, guys, and actually, I think it might be next.
It's week after next.
It's the week after next. I will actually be in Utah. And so Mac and I are planning on getting together, recording the episode live, as we always do. But the difference is that we'll be in the same room. So the chemistry, the gaming commentary chemistry will be through the roof, you guys, just like it used to be back in the day when we used to call this show a little thing called Man Cave TV. So that'll be not next week, but the week after. We will keep you guys updated. And that's kind of what we had for this week, Mac. Anything else you want to say to the people before we wrap it up?
No, just be sure to tune in. Some couch co-op podcasting.
That's exactly right. You guys really are the best viewers on Twitch. Once again, this is Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the galaxy, episode number 36. Hit us up on iTunes, like it, share it, subscribe it, and most of all, keep being nerdy. We'll be back next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Central Standard, 8 p.m. Mountain. Same bat place, same bat time. Same bat rhymes. Keep it nerdy. Deuces.